Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we have been absolutely treated over the past couple of nights to some of the best NHL hockey I've ever had the pleasure of witnessing. We have just a bunch of incredible playoff matchup games kind of winding down the series, but obviously mainly for those who haven't been absolutely under a rock, two absolutely just incredible game sevens that I cannot believe that the Jets and Blues somehow topped the game that came before them. Like, it was just phenomenal viewing. So obviously we're going to talk a lot about that for this episode, but before we get into those, I do think we have a bit of coaching and GM news around the league.
Yeah. Like you said, phenomenal game sevens. Not the best game seven I've ever seen, but pretty damn close to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think before we get into all the stuff with the playoffs, we should do our due diligence and continue to go around the league and cover everything kind of surrounding teams that didn't make the playoffs or are now eliminated. And that starts, of course, with shakeups among organizations, primarily being coaching changes and GM changes. And that's what we got today. So, Braden, hit us with the first one.
Yeah, so I don't. Is this the one you called, or were you saying?
No,
were
yeah,
you saying? Yeah, the Mike Sullivan to the New York Rangers as the head coach. I believe I heard he was hired for 5 years, a 5-year contract.
5 years, makes sense.
Yeah, like he's been able to take teams to the promised land before when they have the talent on the roster. This team somehow missed the playoffs this year, vastly underperformed, but they've got the talent. Like, would you be at all shocked if they, went on a run to the conference final next year, to the cup finals with the team they have in New York?
Yeah.
Like,
I think I still would be.
I feel like they have a lot of good pieces. I mean, they did regress this year, but
yeah, they regressed, and on paper, good team. But again, and this is the biggest thing with the Rangers, if the Rangers are going to do that, Chris Kreider next year, he's going to have to go back to being a 30-goal guy, 50-point guy. And Zibanejad, he's going to have to go back to being that. I would say first line set. I know they have Vincent Trocheck, but if you're going to want to be up there, getting to that Eastern final, Zibanejad's going to have to go back to being a first line center who, is putting up 70+ points. If that can happen, sure. Will it?
Yeah.
Probably not. I think the Rangers are kind of in that area where you tried to make it work in your players are getting a lot older, and more than anything, you have like really no injection of youth coming into the team. You have Gabe Perreault, but again, how's that going to work? Because we've seen the Rangers just completely derail these young players' careers by putting them in bad situations and not allowing them to develop, and that's been a trend for a while. So it's too. I guess it's too early to say. I need to see what they do.
That's
in
fair.
This offseason. What do they do with their first round pick? In my opinion, you move it to Pittsburgh. I don't think you're doing yourself any favors by using it this year, because then you've just got a player who's not going to be playing for you. Whereas at least next year, if you do suck, you've got your first round pick, and if you're a top team in the league, you've got that as ammo to trade. So that's the one thing they should do. Just give Pittsburgh your pick, and then kind of rebuild this roster a bit throughout free agency, because it needs work.
Yeah, and they can actually move that pick this year because they're not hosting the draft in the Sphere, so their owner hopefully will allow them to move it.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, Chris Kreider, it's a little tougher of a sell that he's going to bounce back and be that guy. Zibanejad, I would be shocked if he doesn't at least improve a bit on this past season. 20 goals, 62 points. Like, I know a lot of people talk like he fell off a cliff, and obviously this is the worst season he's had in at least 4 years, at least. But still 62 points on the season
good,
in all 82.
You need more from your first line center, is what it comes down to.
You absolutely do, but This is the worst year he's had in quite a while. He's only 32 years old. He's not, Chris Kreider's getting to the point where you're expecting that drop off. Maybe this is it happening. He's dropping off a bit earlier than expected. I think this is a one-off season. I think he'll be back and have a couple more years in that, 75, 80, maybe if he really gets back to it, 90 point range for
Mhm.
2-3 more years before it starts falling off that much. Then again, it also matters if guys like Panarin fall off, because if Panarin starts falling off a little bit, everyone's numbers are going down a bit.
Yeah, well, again, we really haven't dove into it because not a whole lot, but there is that stuff with Panarin, and we don't know what's going to happen with the Rangers there. Um, it's very possible. For them too. Obviously, they got some work to do. You got to figure out how to get Keandre Miller signed and what that deal is going to look like. Um, again, it's just you look at that core: Panarin 33, Zibanejad 32, Miller 32, Kreider 34, Trocheck 31. Like
They're in a
that's
weird area
your
that's
core
like
where
they're
those are the guys you rely on. So
they're almost like a homegrown version of the Nashville Predators in a way. You know? Like they're kind of in a similar spot. It's just the Predators went out and got all these players and they underperformed and they're old. New York just kind of already had them, and then that kind of similar season happened to them. Like
yeah, yeah.
in a weird roundabout way, but
One.
especially if Shesterkin, goes back to being one of those, top 5, top 3 goalies in the league that we know he can be. I mean, right away that steals you a ton of games.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm not going to say no, but again, I think there is work that needs to be done, and
Yeah.
it's got to be done
Oh,
this offseason.
100%.
So we'll see how that goes. But you did mention Nashville. We got some Nashville news. The Predators did confirm today that head coach Andrew Brunette will return behind the bench next season. So there goes that
We were
that
hoping to
theory
see
of maybe getting a
that
new
switch up.
head coach in there. So we'll see how that works next year. I want to be optimistic for Nashville, but again, I think kind of like the Rangers, you got to do a little bit of work and you got to figure out what your issues is because again, on paper, it is a good team, but they weren't a good team. So
And they didn't pass the eye test either. Like some of these teams
yeah,
are like they don't do well, but like they kind of pass the eye test. That team did not. Every time you watched them, it was like
it was
they're
bad.
they're fourth last in the league, and I don't understand how they're even that good at
Yeah,
times. Like it's
it was
crazy.
not it was not good one bit. Um, and then lastly, the last little bit of news coming out earlier today. The Los Angeles Kings, after yet another first round exit, have mutually agreed with general manager Rob Blake to part ways. Um, again, I think it was at some point middle of the season. I kind of said, all right. Actually, I think it was last off season. I said Rob Blake needs to go. Um, it's not after this season. It's not necessarily he did anything wrong, but
A fresh set of eyes.
maybe could have done a bit more to help the team out. And again, yeah, it's one of those kind of things where you're at a spot where you got to try and shake something up. Um, don't
How
know
long
what's
has
going
he
to go on
been
with the
there?
head coaching situation. 5 years, I believe. I think
Really?
it's
That's it. Wow, I felt like I'd been hearing about him there for a long time, but
I could
yeah.
be wrong. I very well could be wrong. I probably am, honestly. Let's be real. I tend to be wrong a lot.
Uh, but yeah,
But makes sense.
yeah, they need a new set of eyes, and it's too bad because relatively recently are some of his better moves that he's made. The Kuzmenko deal late in the season. He turned. I don't even want to say one of. I think it's safe to say the biggest boat anchor contract at the time in the league in Pierre-Luc Dubois. He turned that into what is now we know this year a Vezina finalist goalie.
Yeah.
Like for almost like a little more than half the cost of Dubois' contract, probably like
Mhm.
65% of his cost. So that was also a home run. But uh, yeah, that said, 4 straight first round exits, all to the same team. Sure, that team has McDavid, Draisaitl, but uh, they kind of
Something's got to
only have
change.
those guys. You
Yeah.
gotta be able to beat them at least once to keep your job in those 4 years.
Yeah. Something's got to change. And, this is the way that the Kings went. So, again, another team that I'm very curious to see how they navigate this offseason because again, it's the same thing that they've
Yeah.
been kind of doing of how can we beat Edmonton? How can we beat Edmonton? How can we beat Edmonton? And now you're gonna have a new, like you said, a new set of eyes in there and someone with maybe a little bit of a different vision for how you can um, you know, beat a team like Edmonton who's had your number for the last 4 years. So their team I'm very curious and interested to see how they handle the offseason, what moves they make to
Yeah.
hopefully get them over the hump because they're really kind of stuck in quicksand right now and they can't seem to get out of it. They just keep staying there and staying there and staying there. And eventually you either gotta get yourself out or you gotta sink and restart. So that's what
And
this new GM will have to decide for the team.
I did see some people around online saying, why Rob Blake? Why not the head coach and stuff? But they just moved on from Todd McClellan like not that long ago, right? Like,
But yeah, this was Jim Hiller's like his first season as a head coach, and I think he kind of fucked the team over in the plus with that coach's challenge. But regardless of that,
there's a
it's
couple
going to be up
bad
to the
ones.
it's going to be up to the new GM. Really, that tends to be the case with a lot of GMs. They come in and they decide, hey, you want to run with the guy that's here, or do you want to go out and get your own coach? And might be something more later towards once the playoffs are done, and you kind of get a better idea of who's all out there and who could be available. Um, I
But
think if they stick with Hiller, I think it's fine.
I think
But
I
if you
think
go
you
out and
could
get
give him
another
one
guy,
one
I think
more
it makes
season.
sense.
Like he's
I
only
don't think
really
there's a
had
right or
one.
wrong way to go about it.
Yeah, like GMs love coming in and bringing in their own guys, but at the same time, yeah, Hiller's really only had one full season to go for it, and you know we were saying it before the playoffs. This is the most anyone has ever in the past 4 years favored the Kings over the Oilers. Like they looked like a team that could beat them, and especially for the first two games, they really did.
I think the biggest thing with the head coach rally is what is the new GM going to do? Is it going to be kind of just trying to slightly retool what they've got, or is it making like a major move? And then I think that probably determines the route that they're going to go. What do you do with the head coach? Because if you're going to kind of change things up a fair bit, then just get a new head coach. But if it's going to be relatively mostly the same guys and kind of the same structure, then you might as well keep them. I think
Yeah,
that's the best way to go about it. And that's a big decision that the GM's gonna have to make. Right from day one is um, how are you going to shape the team, and you're not going to have a lot of time to do it, and you're going to have to make big decisions because of it. So, good luck to whoever gets that spot. I think there is a lot of great candidates that they can go with, and we'll see what happens with the LA Kings. Because again, you either got to get yourself out of there, or you just got to throw in the towel and um, do a retool. Not a full
yeah,
rebuild, but a retool that probably takes you out of the playoffs maybe for like a year or two.
yeah. And I was just checking, just for argument's sake, but unfortunately, Anze Kopitar has a full no move clause for the remaining 2 years of his contract. Drew Doughty has a modified no trade clause for his remaining 3 years. He's also making $11 million. So, even if you wanted to really, you know, new bring in a new GM and he wants to go, okay, this is the new era of the Kings. Let's move out the franchise players and get younger and all that stuff. You know, you got
Well, how many years does
you
Doughty have
got
left?
you got clauses in the way. You got the cap hit in the way. I don't know how much value they'd really get.
And how
Um,
much does Doughty have left?
3 years. So
So
one of them being this year. So two
Kopitar, I
years
mean, he's
after
your
this.
your your captain, your leader. You have to keep him. Doughty is interesting because 2 years left. You could just retain half. You could get that down to what would that be 5.5.
Yeah,
A lot easier for teams to stomach, and I think you could get good value for it, and you're retaining for only 2 years. That's fine. The cap's going up. And again, if you're moving out Doughty, a part of it is you're kind of doing a little bit of a retool. Not a full rebuild, but a retool. And if you do that, you're able to move on from Doughty, first of all, if that's the decision they want to go with. And you get a lot more if you're retaining half, because there's a lot of teams out there that would gladly take a Drew Doughty still at 5.5. Wouldn't be a
uh,
top line defenseman, but a really good second pair guy that you don't need to have him play a shit ton of minutes every night.
yeah. Just for argument's sake, what are one or two teams you think that if it was made known that Drew Doughty was available, who are some of the first guys who should be calling LA?
Well, if Toronto was in a different position, I would say Toronto because for the longest time they needed a right-hand defenseman, but I'm not going to say them because they're in a decent spot right now, and more than anything, they're probably trying to save every penny to re-sign all of their guys,
Yeah.
and make sure that Matthew Nice doesn't get offer sheeted, which he might.
Oh,
For
he's so good.
Doughty, where would be
I would
Tampa?
imagine somewhere out of the Pacific at the least. I imagine they
Tampa would
wouldn't
be
trade
a
him
team that
close.
I think could really be interested. They need help
Oh,
on defense, especially on the right-hand side. You've got a piece that
I could
could
see it.
easily get the move done. Um, that piece being Isaac Howard, of course.
And you
Um,
know what? A guy like that, LA's probably one of the top teams he'd like to go to. He's
yeah,
kind of
for
wanting
sure,
to pick
team that
his destination.
yeah.
Yeah.
Another team I could maybe see Ottawa. I could see like an Ottawa or potentially nah, maybe I was thinking maybe Carolina, but probably not. Unless they were like just desperately down bad to get an immediate replacement for Brent Burns. Unless they resign Brent Burns. And if they do, then that's fine. Ottawa could make sense. You get another guy on the right side, and again, you've got pieces you could easily get that done, and I'm sure Drew Doughty would love to go to Ottawa. He's an
That would be
Eastern
a
Canadian
fun
boy,
fit.
so that would make sense too. So
Yeah.
two teams that I think could make sense would be Tampa and Ottawa.
I could see it. And so, like I said, he does have a modified no trade for the final 3 years of his deal. I doubt he's going to Ottawa because it's the player submits a 7 team trade list. There's a decent chance Tampa's on there.
A 7-team no trade list or a
A
7-team
7 team
trade list?
trade list. So 25 teams where
Yeah, but
he
see,
can't
even
go.
if like, b- but you can always still work around that because like if you are kind of chatting with Ottawa and there's a deal that could make sense, you could still always go to Doughty and be like, hey, Ottawa's not on here.
Yeah.
You didn't have Ottawa on here originally, but looking at where they're at now, we've got a deal that maybe works. Is that something you're open to? And then he could easily be like, yeah, I'll waive to go there.
Yeah.
If he
Yeah.
doesn't
Which
see
could
himself
happen.
and the Kings, getting over that hump in the next couple years, he could go and try and make it work with Ottawa for sure. So, um, yeah, but I think they'd have options. So, I'm curious to see what they do. But we should uh move on here with
Keep
our next
moving along.
little bit of stuff here. Um, NHL Draft Lottery took
Was
place today.
today?
New format, cool new format. Good way to do it. A lot more engagement kind of throughout it, and a lot less kind of sitting around waiting for the final little bit of it. Um, wow,
Do
what
you
a
Before we talk too much about the results, can I just talk about the draft lottery in general for a quick minute?
yeah, fire away.
Why do they not find a smaller area to do this? This has been a complaint I've had for the last 5 or 6 draft lotteries. Um they always they're in between all these intermissions in the games. There's always the areas with the table, and they got usually about anywhere from 3 to 4 guys, maybe sometimes up to 5 if they have a guest, around the tables, and they talk. But they're a little bit smaller than where they always do the draft. They always do it in this big gaping open room, and they
They just
have
use the NHL studio.
and they
Is
just
all it is.
yeah, and they just
They just have
have
access to that facility. It's there, so
a few
they use it.
random guys standing there, and it looks so empty. There's just like huge logos in the background, and they just look so sad and awkward. They're all standing there like in their weird poses because they don't know what to do with their hands because they're just standing there in their suits. And while the one guy grabs the ping pong ball, like, don't get me wrong, this was I think the most entertaining draft lottery I've ever witnessed from the NHL, and I really hope they do what they did this year again. I just like get a couple more personalities in there, whether that's Bieksa, Lundqvist, Subban, whoever you want to put in there. Hell, if Shaq will come out, bring him. Like, just get a couple of guys in there to have a little fun with it in between the picking. get them some chairs or something.
I
It
mean,
just feels a little empty. Like they have
I
the
don't have a
3
problem with it
lawyers.
really. The problem is that you don't want to make it about all this other stuff, right? Like you don't need all these other guys like I do get what you're saying. I
It
totally
doesn't need
understand it.
too many bells and whistles. Just like even if all the guys, so like this year they had the 3 guys, one of them being Bettman, standing around the ball machine that shot out the numbers that we got to see this time, which was awesome. And then the other 3 had, I think it was 2 lawyers and some NHL rep were like double checking the numbers. At least like give them a desk. It looked so awkward, them all huddling around like they were cheating on a test on this one podium. Like it is a admittedly small nitpick, right? Like this is not going to change hockey, but like they've done it like 5 years in a row, and it just like it feels like they do so little because of COVID, and then it just hasn't rebounded almost, you know?
I get
So
what you're saying, but to
yeah,
me, I really didn't notice any of that.
yeah. It's a very
Just from my
specific
point of view,
nitpick.
but
It's a very
yeah,
specific nitpick,
I,
but
I, I
it's just
do I do
something
get what you're saying though.
just
The
just
one thing
filling
I
out the
will
studio bit.
hard go against is having other guys kind of in there in the mix because I think that just kind of draws attention away from it, and there really wasn't too many moments where they could do anything. You know, that I think at least the format that they had was kind of like you didn't really have any like dead air, and the only times you really did was kind of like when you were just kind of waiting for the number to count down. But at the same time, I was kind of like watching the numbers and like trying to memorize as many as I could before the
Yeah.
next ball type of thing to figure out like, all right, who's still in the running, who's this ball going to favor, who's it going to hurt type of thing. So if anyone was
Yeah.
talking, I honestly have no idea because I wasn't even listening. I was like in the
I don't
zone,
know his
focused
name. There
on.
was the one guy who he loves saying it. He loves saying the holy shnikes. It was that guy who was doing the majority of the talking
Uh,
throughout.
Off the top of my head, I can't remember.
I want to say he's one of the Edmonton guys, but I really am not sure. But he was doing the majority. Honestly, you don't need a lot of guys. Just like even one more guy that's mic'd up, and then you kind of have the guy who was talking this year is like kind of the play by play. He does 70%, 80% of the talking, and then just like one more voice to just get another opinion or bring up something that other people might not think about. One guy's
Mhm,
talking about San Jose could use Schaefer, and what if the Blackhawks want Michael Misa, stuff like that, and then the other guy chimes in with how crazy would it be if Calgary or Utah moved up, just
mhm.
a little bit more. But
Yeah,
honestly,
I
they
I
did
do
a
get what
very
you're
good
saying.
job of it. And
Yeah, I definitely did like this format a lot more. It was a lot more engagement again. There wasn't as much kind of sitting around and just waiting for the big reveal at the end type of thing. Although
yeah,
this year would have been kind of a bit crazy because we would have had the cards flipped and would have been like, okay, you know, shit, Utah moved up, and then all of a sudden, shit, the Islanders moved up, and then it was like, then it would have been a little bit more um, chaotic there in that sense. But this was a really fun way to do it.
yeah. With these two results, no matter how you're doing it, it would have been chaotic. Like that's
Yeah.
that's a crazy result, and uh, they didn't explain. Luckily, the rules weren't too difficult to grasp because they didn't really explain them well. Maybe if they just pre-record a video of you explaining the rules, play that, and then start the broadcast.
hmm
Because I think it was Bettman tried to explain at the start, and he did a fine job. And like as soon as it
So
starts going, it makes sense. But
one thing I will say is they did do a video explaining it pretty in depth and in a good way. The issue is yes, they didn't show it the broadcast. It was like
oh,
only put up on the NHL's like
it was on their socials and
Instagram,
stuff.
Twitter, yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So it
okay.
was out there,
I figured
but
it
they didn't put
probably
it with the
existed.
broadcast, which was kind of a bad move on their part.
Yeah,
Um, with this draft lottery, I had, and again, by no means am I, a draft expert or anything. I just like to have fun watching these prospects, kind of doing some mock drafts throughout the year and kind of getting to know these players and their play styles and where they might fit in. So come draft time, it's just a lot more exciting for me personally. And I had a lot of people the last couple of days being like, okay, so like this isn't a Connor Bedard year, this isn't a Jack Hughes year, an Austin a McDavid year. Like who's first overall? Like what do we? And the biggest thing is we don't know.
it's
I've
not one of
told
those
everybody,
years with the
do you
consensus.
want uh, forward or defenseman. If you want defenseman, you take Matthew Schaefer. If you want forward, you go with Michael Misa. But the one thing I always said to people is at the beginning of the year, James Higgins was slated to go first overall. Kind of has slidden down to that 4 or 5 range, I feel like. But I told people, I said, if the Islanders end up with pick number 1 or 2, there is a very good chance they could take him. And that is exactly what happened. The New York Islanders won the 2025 NHL Draft Lottery, only having a 3.5% chance to move up to pick number 1. And against all odds, they did it. So they hold the first overall pick. The San Jose Sharks slide down to 2, Chicago down to 3. And then at number 4, the Utah Hockey Club won the second lottery and moved up 10 spots, because you can only move up 10 spots now, to pick number 4. And they only had a 1.5% chance to move up to this spot. So 2 teams pretty far down there. The balls fell in their direction. They lucked out, and it completely changes the draft lottery because, if San Jose stayed 1, Chicago 2, we pretty much all know what was going to happen. It was going to be Schaefer and then Misa probably. But with the Islanders in the mix there's so many different possibilities of
There really is.
what could happen there. Do you want the number 1, franchise defenseman? Do you want the super flashy number 1 center Misa? Or do you take a guy that was slated first overall, kind of fell, but grew up on Long Island, grew up a massive Islanders fan. He bleeds orange and blue, and I got to imagine would have no problem spending his entire career with the Islanders. Something
And-
that a former first overall pick that they had didn't want to do. Wanted to go back home to the Toronto area, where Schaefer and Misa are
like, for
from
real.
that area. So do you? It's very interesting. And they're still looking for a new GM. Like, this is
and they don't have
you
a
have the first
GM to
overall
know what
pick
to do
and-
with this stuff. They
Yeah.
gotta find one ASAP.
Well, and that job just became a lot more desirable. Like, if they only had a
lot
small
more.
number of people interested in the job, they got a lot more that are lining up now.
Yeah, I wonder if there's anybody that's already turned down an interview or something.
And now they're like, shit, can I get
And
that
then
back?
now they're like, are there open auditions? Should I set a time? One thing I want to ask you, and I don't know if you know, there's a good chance you don't. This is an insanely specific question. Do you know when the last time was that an NHL team won the lottery, got first overall pick, and then traded it?
Probably would have been the 99 draft. No, it wasn't even 99, because that was the second or third overall pick.
I think it might have been both for the Sedins.
No, I think Vancouver had one of the picks already. I'm pretty sure.
Did they? Oh, okay.
I
I thought they had
think
4
so.
and moved up to 2 and 3, but
I was, yeah.
I was
many,
one.
many-
I was.
I'm
I
not
was one at
sure
the time.
actually when traded the pick before
Traded
the
the
actual
pick.
draft, right?
Yeah, traded the pick after the lottery, so they know it's first overall, but before anyone has been picked with it. I'm looking around. It's very specific to look up. I'm not seeing what I'm looking for, but do you think that's something that we could see here with the Islanders? They obviously have to get a GM who's got the nuts to walk in and trade it. But I'm thinking specifically, if they're not taking Higgins, then there's a very high chance they're taking Schaefer. The San Jose Sharks want Schaefer, right?
Yeah, so it looks... Damn, when the fuck was this?
Are you looking at a black and white picture?
There was the 1998 draft, the Vincent Lecavalier one, was a mess. So that would have been the last time that a first overall pick was traded.
Oh wow.
And again, if people want to know the full story, that I fully encourage you to do your own research on this and whatnot. This is just on the fly, so this is going to be kind of messy all over the place, but it gets the point across. So for the 98 draft, on November 14th, 1997, Florida traded the pick to San Jose. That was November 14th. March 24th, San Jose traded that pick to Tampa Bay in a package that included a first-round pick. That pick being what would go on to be the second overall pick in the 98 NHL draft. And then San Jose ended up taking that second overall pick and they flipped it to Nashville for the third overall pick and a second-round pick that became Jonathan Cheechoo. So
Huge.
technically, it wasn't the first overall pick at the time.
But it got moved. Obviously, it was unprotected. They probably didn't protect him at the time.
It got moved twice. March 14th, so I'm assuming probably right around kind of trade deadline time at back then.
Probably.
So it was the first overall pick that was moved, but I don't think it was technically like the first overall pick at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, like it really doesn't happen often, but
so sorry, you went going back to what you were saying though. You were asking if the Islanders traded this one.
I think there's a good chance. Like if they do want Higgins, even if they just move down to second overall and give San Jose the first overall, I don't think San Jose is going to go, haha, we got it, and take Higgins, right? They're going Schaefer all day.
Yeah.
So if you really want Higgins, what's the point in picking him first, Like,
yeah, so the biggest thing with the Islanders that I think it comes down to is how do you feel about Noah Dobson? I think is really where with this team,
fair.
The new GM has to take a look at it and decide what are we doing here? Is Noah Dobson the 70 plus point guy that he was the year prior, but then this year only 39 points in 71 games. So you really have to kind of look at it and decide, is Dobson our future number one defenseman? Can we build a defensive core around him? If not, then I think you just take Schaefer all day. If you have faith and belief in Noah Dobson, then it gets a bit more interesting because, then you could just go up there. You could just take the best forward in the draft, Michael Misa, and you run with that. But I think if you want Higgins, I don't see why you don't, look at. I think all those teams in the mix. You look at San Jose, you look at Chicago, or Seattle. No,
yeah, you see how far you can go down to.
I don't think you risk going outside the top four.
No,
I think at that point,
and that's why I was initially just saying
too much.
The Sharks, like if they really want him and they don't, the consolation prize at third, at most, if somebody else took him, would be Misa, which is still good. But if you really want Higgins, you don't want to go outside that top four. And I'm so consistent. This is one of the few things that I'm very consistent with around hockey, and that is if you think it's at all close, if one of the guys a hometown guy, you go with them. Like I absolutely adore teams picking up guys that have lived in the area, been a fan for his life. Like
he probably had Islanders bed sheets growing up.
Yeah, you don't have to worry about that too much if you're, the Montreal Canadiens or the Toronto Maple Leafs. There's a million of them out there. But like a guy who, at least for a good bit there, really looked like you can still put bets on James Higgins versus the field for the draft. Like that's they expected him to go first for a while. And for a guy that level to have your team's logo on his bed sheets when he's grown up, like that's pretty special. So I'm always a fan of cheering for that.
Yeah, me too, and that's what made the Islanders winning. Plus, our dad also is a massive Islanders fan, so this was a huge win for him, a great moment for him. But with the Islanders winning, it just throws that extra little wrinkle in there. Like if Chicago got one, San Jose got one, most of these teams, you kind of know what they're going to do. But with the Islanders, it's, they're a team that we don't really know what direction they're going in. Are they rebuilding? Well, not rebuilding, but kind of retooling. Are they trying to get a new GM in and go right back to the playoffs next year? Again, a team we talked about a lot. If that goalie interference call that cost him that game against Columbus, they were on I think a 5 or 6 game win streak going into that game. They lost that game, and then they lost like 6 straight and took them out of the playoffs. If they won that game, maybe we were talking about them being in the playoffs. And crazy
and
how
then
it
they
all
wouldn't
comes
have
together.
this.
And now they end up with the number 1 pick. So yeah, it really just makes this draft a lot more interesting. There's so many possibilities. But I
Yeah.
think if Higgins is the play, I think, yeah, why not trade down a couple picks and grab an extra prospect or an extra pick or
Prospect,
something like,
current player if you really want a guy that's on one of those teams. Like you'd be trading with a
yeah.
rebuilding team most likely anyway. So yeah, I think that's something that
I
whoever
mean,
ends up
like,
in this
fuck,
GM spot at least needs to look at. Especially
like,
like you said, Noah Dobson's a huge part of this because he'll be, you know, he's going to be the number 1 defenseman if they don't take Schaefer. He is this offseason unrestricted free agent. He's an RFA. They could a GM could come in, sign with the team, and the next day be like, Noah Dobson's back for 8 more years.
yeah. And the thing with the Islanders too that they could do, just want to double check the numbers here. So 3 and 3.5. So if the Islanders want to trade down, like you could go to say Chicago, picking at 3 and say, "Hey Chicago, we'll give us 3rd overall pick and then whatever it is. If it's say Tampa's no, they don't have Tampa's first this year. Do they have anyone
I
else
think we're
first?
done with that. Let
Whatever,
me take a
whatever.
look
Whether
here.
it's a later first
Chicago.
or
They have
their
Toronto's first.
okay. So say give us the 3rd overall pick and Toronto's first round pick,
Yeah,
and we'll
32nd
give
overall.
you yeah. Or if they say no to that, then just be like, okay, give us your 2nd round pick, which would be like 34, and we'll give you the
Yeah,
1st overall pick, but you
and
have
you
to
get your
take Scott Mayfield and Pierre Engvall, and you have to clear up that $6.5 million that's on our cap until 2030. So you have to take those contracts off the books, help Chicago get up to the cap floor a little bit more easier, and it helps clear up some extra cap space for the Islanders.
that would be a fun
You
trade.
got 2 dead contracts, would be a good way to move them. And you
That would
could
be
easily move them both if you're parting ways with the 1st overall pick and you're giving that team their pick. Because if Chicago's sitting 3, you're most likely not going to get either Schaefer or Misa. You move up to 1, you've got your pick of either one. I think
yeah.
that's worth eating some cap for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, having a guy like Misa to play with Bedard is the dream in
Which I
Chicago.
think is the way Chicago would go because you
I think so.
already took Levshinov over Demidov last year.
Yeah.
So I think this year you have to bring in a forward up front with Bedard. So I think that's what Chicago would do. And if I'm Chicago, I would do that all day.
If I'm either team, I'm walking away going sucker. Like
Yeah.
that's great for both sides. And it would also be just really funny in general because it would be a Toronto first rounder getting moved for uh dealing with Pierre Engvall's contract.
Yeah.
He just like still keeps getting moved around with assets from the Leafs. But I I think something like that is something that whoever ends up, it's so funny because this is such a complex situation they got in the island, and now they don't have a GM to even deal. Nobody's around to do the work on this right now. Is the
Yeah.
crazy part. Like
And
they're gonna have to find
obviously
a GM relatively soon
yeah. And obviously
before the finals, at least.
the last thing I'll kind of say on this, and we can move on to the playoff stuff, is again, I know a lot of people didn't like Lou Lamoriello, and he's not there anymore. Obviously, he didn't, rig it, so they got the 1st overall pick. But you look at where the Islanders were a year ago compared to now, 1st round exit, but now you go out and you get an absolute steal in the draft and grabbing a guy like Cole Eiserman. You move on from Brock Nelson, you get a top 35 prospect in the league currently. And a guy like Callum Rich, who I think is going to be really good. You get a 1st round pick next year in what's a much deeper draft. So you're going to get a good player with that pick. Or a Brock Nelson, who I like the guy, but really didn't do much for Colorado since going there. And now you get a 1st overall pick. That's a pretty quick turnaround. That's almost on the level of how quick of a turnaround San Jose had from where they were at when they were so bad and looking like they were just going to be a middle of the pack team for the next 5 or so years. to completely kind of turning the sentiment around with this franchise. So he's not there anymore, but he was very impactful with the Islanders in his last little bit in putting the team in a good position for whoever comes in to take over. I
Yeah.
wouldn't like him at the helm with his first overall pick and making moves, but he left the team in very good hands.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it was definitely time to move on from him, but you know, you look at a lot of teams where they were when some GMs left the teams, and it's like, damn, this guy left a crater, an absolute wasteland for the next guy to deal with.
Mhm.
That is absolutely not the case with this Islanders team and Lamoriello.
Yeah. And again,
A
yeah, they
lot
don't.
of re-signing to do on the back end. They've
Yeah.
got 3 defensemen signed long term, and then they've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are expiring this offseason. 4 of them RFA, 2 of them UFA, but I mean, that's just work that's got to be done.
Yeah, it's a very fun job for whoever gets it, and I'm sure we'll be talking lots because there's obviously going to be lots of rumors leading up to the draft, and I'm very curious to see what the Islanders do because again, the possibilities are just endless for what they could do.
Yeah,
Like they could move back, they could take Schaefer, they could take Misa, they could chalk everyone, just take Hagens at 1 like he was projected at the start of the year. So many different options for them. So it's
yeah,
gonna be a rough. I see a lot of Islanders fans online are very happy, but at the same time now they're just
big
gonna be
decisions.
shitting themselves for the next couple, like the next, you know, basically 2 months until the draft, wondering, okay, so what are we doing? What's gonna happen? You know, it because there's not that slam dunk first overall. That's you know the consensus guy. There's so many things the Islanders can do, and we just
Yeah,
gotta wait and see what happens.
yeah, that's pretty much it. I guess at this point, and then I guess we didn't really talk a ton about it either. But I guess Utah, obviously winning the second
Oh
lottery, and
yeah,
they moved
yeah.
up to number 4, which is obviously less sexy than moving up to number 1, but it's a lot better than the 14th overall they had. So that's going to be huge for them as well, because we've been saying all year the top 4 to 5 of this draft are really good, but it starts to drop off a little quick
And
after
that's
that.
the perfect spot for Utah because um I look at their team and I mean, yeah, if they somehow end up with first overall and got a Matthew Schaefer, fantastic. But fourth overall, that's prime pickings to grab a guy like Porter Martone. And I think Utah could really use a bigger body power forward with their forwards. So
Yeah.
I think this is a huge win for them. And if they want to just get crazy with it and trade it and go get a impact player or just trade back a bit and grab more pieces, like go for it. You've
They
again
definitely
another
could.
team that's got options because they're looking to win now or at least get into the playoffs. So they could have some fun in maybe making some moves
Yeah.
to shake it up
I
a little bit there.
and they've been very upfront about, like, as soon as they got taken over from the Coyotes to the Utah, which actually I guess I don't know if we've talked about on here, but we now know. I guess they haven't made an official announcement, but they've changed all their social media handles, so it's kind of an open secret. But they are going to be the Utah Mammoth. Um,
Yeah, as it should
but
be.
I Yeah, I think they could move it and try and get a player now, maybe go for a Ricard Raquel or a player that, will help them now instead of a bit of a future. But I think this is one of those times where they were already set on a good pace. They're going to get better next year regardless. I think
Hmm.
you probably just take the best available player, whether that's a Porter Martone or whoever, and uh,
Yeah,
you just say, "Sweet, that's just a bonus we had no clue we were going to have, and it'll
yeah.
help
That
out."
that's exactly it. Yeah, it's just extra gravy for them winning this. They're already in a decent spot, and now you luck out and you get to grab a guy at fourth overall.
Yeah,
That's just
huge.
extra for him. So yeah, I agree.
But with all that being said, we took a little bit longer than we thought we might over there, but it's finally time to talk about the playoffs. Where on earth do you want to start off with these? Do we just
I
want
I,
to
I
start
think we
at
just
the top
start
of this
in.
list?
Yeah, we when we last left off at the end of last week, we had a bunch of game sixes taking place. potentially a couple game sevens. We did get a couple game sevens, but we did have 5 series that needed to ended. I do have them in order here on how each series wrapped up and who was eliminated. So I think we just start from the top and we work our way down to once we get to the end, and then we'll wrap the episode up with not really an in-depth talk, but kind of just doing a little bit of a prediction for round 2 of the playoffs. So let's kick it off. Toronto and Ottawa.
Yeah, so Toronto defeated Ottawa in 6 games. It I was relatively confident in them, but obviously it being Toronto and all, they lose that game 4. And then was it game 5 where it was a 4-0 shutout? That's
Yeah.
when that probably put a lot of fear into a lot of Leafs fans. That was probably a huge "oh fuck, it's happening again" moment.
Yeah.
And luckily they ended up closing it out.
They were able to figure it out and get it done. Didn't make it easy on themselves in game 6, but in Ottawa they were able to finish the job out, not have to worry about going to a game 7. I think we both predict in the end that actually no, I think I said Ottawa takes game 6, but then Toronto wins in game 7. I did. I fucked that up. But you got it right. So props to you.
I think I said in game 6 once they got to that point.
Yeah. I picked Ottawa, and a lot of people were making fun of me. I didn't think they were gonna win, but I thought, hey, you know what? There's usually at least one crazy upset. I think I went with 2 in the end, but I was like, if there's gonna be a crazy upset, why wouldn't it be this one? And it didn't. So whatever. I'm fine. Taking that one on the chin. My bracket's already fucked. I went 3 for 8 in the first round. So
yeah,
whatever.
Mine's rough. All my swings didn't work out.
Yeah. We tried. We tried.
We went for some off the board picks. I thought I would look pretty cool if Montreal went on and everyone was picking the Caps, but that's just not how it went.
But I will say, I mean, Ottawa did win game 5 or game 4 in overtime. Toronto won game 2 and 3 in overtime. If Ottawa didn't suck in overtime, whatever, Ottawa could have easily been up 3-2 going into this game 6. Ottawa could have won. Toronto could have won if they won in overtime. It felt it felt very lopsided. Like it felt like it was very clear Toronto was the much better team. But when you actually look at the series as a whole, it was like
it wasn't insane.
Ottawa could have won this easily.
Yeah,
but they didn't. Toronto had the experience. Ottawa,
despite
the to get in.
Yeah, despite the Marners leaving and the Matthews Balding chance in game 6.
Yeah, that's tough for Paps to hear that one. That's rough. That's rough.
Oh man. That's pretty funny though. That's the stuff you don't mind hearing from the fans. Like that's funny that everyone was willing to chant that. They had a huge chance for Brady Tkachuk as well after the game 6 loss. Like
they were on his injury. But I know
I haven't either.
Obviously something, like
I'm sure.
Just don't know what it is.
Yeah. Maybe
we'll never know.
That is a decent chance. Who knows? The Tkachuks are weird about injuries. They might just not tell anybody. I really like that from Sens fans though. Like they really made it known that they were like, thank you, Tkachuk, for getting us to the playoffs. We appreciate it. Like first time there in, what is it, 7-8 years?
I think since 2017.
Yeah, so I think 8 full seasons, and you finally got him there. They didn't win the first round, but like the goal this season was always get to the playoffs. It wasn't win in the playoffs. It was get to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's just, and it just helps that, you didn't get swept. You got an overtime win in your own barn. You at least were able to win a game in your own arena. You got to watch them shut out the Leafs and not allow Toronto to win at home. You at least had to bring the fight back home, and they had to win in Ottawa. So they did lose, but again, like you said, the goal was just to make the playoffs. And at least this Ottawa team showed that, even though they're a wild card team, they went up against the top team in the Atlantic. And again, despite it looking very heavily in Toronto's favor, the overall landscape of it, Ottawa was right in there in the fight. And at the end of the day, you really can't ask for much more. Yeah, would it have been nice if you won? Well, absolutely. Of course it would be. But you didn't, but you were right in there. And you can take that and that experience and your players can learn from it, and you can improve for next year.
Yeah.
And you don't got to worry about Brady Tkachuk and other guys leaving because you can't make the playoffs because you proved to everybody you can.
Yeah.
Just got
Post
to do it
game
every year now.
afterwards, Brady Tkachuk also very, very emphatically, some of the guys they'll go out there and they'll be like, "No, I like it here," but like you can tell they're reading the cue cards, they're saying the things. He seemed pretty passionate saying, anybody saying I want to leave is making up shit.
Yeah.
I've never said that. I'm the captain. I got drafted here. I want to be here. Like
Yeah.
he doesn't sound like Matthew Tkachuk in Calgary
Yeah.
saying I want to stay. And I'm not saying he was lying about it necessarily, but he sounds more passionate about it, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And it helps that, now that they made the playoffs and they showed that they can do it. This team can do it. You just got to continue to build on it. Just
Yeah.
keep going. Just keep going. And this team will be making noise in the East for a little while now.
Yeah. After that, I guess, do you want to hop over to the West?
Yeah, just there we go. Got the timestamp for everybody. I know you guys are loving the timestamps. The next series.
Huge
And
work.
I guess to wrap it up. Congrats to Toronto, who
Of
we'll
course.
continue to talk about as you're in the playoffs. And for Ottawa, again, congrats, you made the playoffs, and have a fun off season. We'll see what you do. The next series that wrapped up on that Thursday, the Vegas Golden Knights defeat the Minnesota Wild in Game 6 in Minnesota. That one sucked. I was really rooting for Minnesota. What's the final score in that game?
Was it a 1-goal? It was a 1-goal game, right? They couldn't score with the empty net. I think it was like a 4-3,
3-2,
something like that. 3-2. It was real close. They had their chances on the empty net, or I guess their net was empty. With the extra man, they were cycling around. They were getting their shots. They just couldn't find the back of the net. But man, this was way closer of a series than I think anybody really anticipated. Maybe you.
I had Minnesota in 7.
I was just gonna say, was that another one of you hoping though, or did you expect that? Because
a little bit of both.
I definitely wanted them to win. I didn't think
I was more confident in Minnesota as opposed to Ottawa over Toronto. Ottawa was my one where it was like there's going to be a crazy upset. If Minnesota won, to me at least, it didn't feel like a super crazy upset because again, prior to in the regular season, all the guys on Minnesota getting injured, they were a top team in the league. Kaprizov was at one point the favorite for the Hart Trophy. And then you look, they take the best defenseman out of college and they bring him in Z Boyum. So to me, it was never like I was like, oh yeah, Minnesota's got this, but it was like to me, it kind of felt like a 50-50 series. It was now we're finally getting a Minnesota team that's got everybody back. They're finally fully healthy again, and they were one of the best teams when everybody was healthy in the regular season. So I thought, why can't they do it in the playoffs? And again, one of those ones where, how did that go? Did they lose 2 in overtime? Double check here.
I think so, but
yeah, they lost games. Would that be 4 and 5 in overtime?
Which is so brutal because
5 they got the lead with a minute left, and the goal got called back for an offside. You win that game, you're up 3-2 in the series. It's at least going 7.
Yeah, like it
was very unfortunate for them, but hey, they were offside.
I really thought positive thinking, like the best they could really get to was Vegas winning in 6, like barring a huge upset or just an implosion on Vegas's end. But like they won 2 of the first 3 games. Game 4 goes to overtime. If they get that goal, they're up 3-1. They're probably winning the series if they win that overtime.
Well, and I mean, you look at it, right? Like Vegas won game 1 4-2, but the 4th goal by Brett Howden was with like 0.8 seconds left on an empty net. So realistically, 3-2. Yeah. They won game 4 4-3 in overtime. They won game 5 3-2 in overtime. And then they won game 6 3-2 in regulation. So pretty much. And again, I'm just going to say every game because whatever, empty net goal with 0.8 seconds. Who gives a shit about that? Every
Yeah,
game they won was a 1-goal game. Minnesota's 2 wins were dominating 5-2 wins.
like
And
it
I
was
think
a
that comes down to Vegas just had the experience more so, and they're able to kind of win those grimy games and those battles right down to the wire, those close games. Minnesota could go out there and dominate, sure, but that's kind of part of it in the playoffs is you got to find ways to win those games when it's close and coming down to the wire, and you need those guys to step up. And Vegas just has that experience and those guys that have been in those situations for the past however many years, and that at the end of the day is what was able to propel them to win this one. So
yeah. No, yeah, you're completely right, and it's man, like you said, like basically all the games in this series were 1-goal games, except for the two ones where the Wild won handedly. Like that, that's a close series, man. Like just a couple more breaks, a couple more saves. Unfortunately, was it Game 5 where Gustafson had to leave partway through I think the third period
yeah,
because
yeah.
he was sick, or I think they said it was illness, which just had to be brutal for him. Like he so badly wanted to keep playing, and he was. I gotta imagine he was white as a ghost or thrown up in the locker room or something to get pulled.
And that was the game where Ryan Hartman scored with a minute left.
Maybe he makes that
So
save.
you could have maybe gotten away with that game where Gustafson goes down. You don't have to go to overtime, and Fleury didn't cost him that by any means, but would
No,
have been
no,
really
it
cool for
wasn't a bad goal.
Fleury to come in as the backup. Gustin goes down, and Minnesota wins. Fleury gets a playoff win there, and maybe the vibes are just so good. You go back to Minnesota and you roll Vegas in a 5-2 game again, and you walk away. And we've beaten this drum a fair bit, and I've spewed it a lot on Twitter because people love to just dog me like, oh, another first round exit for Minnesota. Dude, they went to 6 with Vegas and they had 15 million in dead cap. I mean, what more do
It's
you
a
want from
huge
them?
part. I mean,
Like
15 million. What does that get you this
probably a
offseason? What could it
first
get you?
line
It could get you a Mitch
first line
Marner.
first line player and a top 4 defenseman,
Yeah, like it
give or
could.
take, depending on what guys you go after.
Like I'm not saying they're going to go out and get him, or he would necessarily even want to go there, but like you could legitimately go out and get a Mitch Marner, a Mikko Rantanen level guy, and
Mhm.
probably have a little bit of money left over too. Like,
Looking at the realistics, think of it this way. In the offseason, they could take that 15 mil and they could go out and they could grab a Brock Nelson, a Brock Besser, so 2 great additions to your top 6, and then a Luke Shen type guy.
yeah,
Realistically, you could get all 3 of those pieces with that 15 mil in dead cap. I
and
think that puts you over the hump to beat Vegas this year, especially.
oh, in a series this close, absolutely. I think Brock Besser alone probably does,
Actually, no,
to be honest.
probably, yeah, yeah.
So, like, that's the fact that they did what they did this year with that just insane amount of dead cap. I don't know if our team's ever had that much dead cap at once. Probably not.
Let alone
Uh,
make the playoffs too.
yeah, like
When you've
it's
got how many teams this year
huge.
that are, would be over the cap if this was still regular season, like they're doing it well under. And this isn't to take anything away from Vegas. Again, this Vegas team is
Of
very
course.
deep, and again, the biggest thing for them is all these guys got experience. They know how to get it done, and that's what makes them um, such an effective playoff team, right? Like, yeah, it's cool if you could go out there and just roll a team and rack up a bunch of goals every night, but at the end of the day, yeah, look at Florida last year. The main reason they won the cup is because they kept finding they were able to always win those close games. If they got destroyed one night, who cares? But if it's a close game, it's like fuck, I don't want to be if your team's up against Florida, you're like, I don't want this game to be close because
Yeah,
this Florida team
they're not a team
always
that you
finds
feel
a way to
safe.
win.
You don't feel safe with 5 minutes left and a 2-goal lead like
Yeah.
that. You're not safe yet.
Yeah.
Like
So
you need
this
4 or
Vegas
5
team
goals.
is really proving why they continue to be a threat despite maybe not having the sexiest roster as opposed to the last couple years that they had. But they got those core guys and they got those guys that can show up in those big moments or make those big blocks or Aiden Hill making those big saves. And that's what separates them from a lot of teams. So it's a well-deserved win by Vegas. And again, I mean, congrats to both teams. I think for Minnesota, I think it was a terrific season. You look at them and it's like, damn, their blue line's set for the next however many years. You've already got great young forwards, and you've got a shit ton of cap space to go play with. Go out, get some big additions. Again, guys I mentioned, Brock Nelson, Brock Besser, both guys I think would be great. They would go there in a heartbeat. They're
And
both from Minnesota. They're
I
both
can see
Minnesota
those guys
boys,
wearing the
so.
dark green too. I can 100% see that.
And that's what you need. You need another center, and you need to have someone else on the wing. That fits your needs right there. Bring the hometown guys in and go tear up the league next year and just stay healthy is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And Kaprizov
obviously
extension July 1st.
Oh, 100%. Kaprizov was a beast in this
the
series
biggest
too.
thing.
One other thing, of course, cool to see it go out against his former team, but congrats, obviously, to Marc-Andre Fleury on I don't think there's any doubt in anybody's mind at this point, a first ballot Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
It was cool to see him get into one more playoff game.
And it sounds like he's joining Canada for the World Championship. And
yes,
it sounds like Minnesota wants to keep him within the organization in some way. And Fleury has been saying, well, actually, it was Jared Spurgeon, and then Fleury
he had a full no move for his 1-year deal for coming back this year, like a full no move, not a modified. So like he really wanted to stay there. He didn't want to go back to any of his former teams. He wanted to be in Minnesota, so it would make sense.
So Jared Spurgeon was talking about it, and they're trying to convince Fleury that if he stays within the Minnesota organization and works there, they want to convince Fleury to be the e-bug for all of their home games. So maybe it's not the last time we see Fleury play an NHL game. Maybe for the Wild, or if he's the e-bug, maybe against the Wild.
That would be fun.
Doors open that maybe we could see Flower return for a little bit.
Yeah.
So that's cool that's out there and potentially possibility. But yeah, I couldn't agree more. Congrats to Flower on a great career, and no doubt will be going to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah. And you did mention there the World Cup, just while we're on the subject. Quite a few players, especially ones that are on playoff teams as they're being eliminated, are announcing that they're going to be joining their respective countries. Namely, Sidney Crosby recently announced that he was going to be on Team Canada. But we'll break that down in the next episode on all the players that have announced that, since we're going to be talking a bit more about the playoffs for the rest of this one. And there's also new names that just keep trickling in for that tournament. So we'll update you guys next episode when the majority of them are all in.
Yeah. Moving on to the next series that wrapped up. Again, this is still on the Thursday. We've already had 2 teams fall on that Thursday. And lastly, the last game to take place. The Edmonton Oilers defeat the Los Angeles Kings once again. 4 years in a row. What do we call this? Do we call this like a grand sweep? Not like a grand slam, but like a grand sweep? I mean, 4 years in a row, you go up first round to the same team. That's tough.
If you win 3 games and then you get swept, it's a reverse sweep. Maybe this is like a semi-sweep, a semi-reverse sweep, something like that. We'll probably have to come up with a name for it at some point, since there's the winning 1 game and then losing 4 in a row is a gentleman's sweep. But I'll tell you what we can call it: brutal for the LA Kings. They win the first 2 games on top of the world. Damn, looks like McDavid and co. is in trouble until they decide they're not.
Yeah.
And their goalies didn't even really get the memo for that not being in trouble. They didn't really turn it on that much, maybe a bit, but they still didn't do great, and the team didn't care. They just outscored their problems like they do, and, well, Oilers in the second round.
Yeah, and again, this was, I talked about last week. Again, this was a series where, again, I don't think it's crazy to say 80% of the series, I think the LA Kings were the better team. And more than anything, it was their own mistakes, especially that brutal turnover by Byfield in game 4 that Edmonton went on to win that one in overtime. You win that one, you go up 3-1.
Those are the moments.
and you're
those are
the
the moments
best
where
home team in the league, I mean,
oh,
you probably win that series. And if you lose that one, it's like, all right, we got game 6, you lose that, you're back home. Like that was the moment. Well, one of the moments. The other one was that coach's challenge that then led to a power play goal right after, and the Kings got rolled in that one. Um, again, it was just it wasn't even one of those ones like Vegas, where Vegas was the more experienced team and found a way. It was LA was making mistakes and they were shooting themselves in the foot, and that's ultimately, what cost them. And it's nothing against Edmonton. Obviously, Edmonton showed up when they had to. They got the big goals and they needed to. Their superstars stepped up when need be. But to me, at the end of the day, it felt like this was, the LA Kings series, and
it
I
was
don't know if they
theirs to
got
win,
too
it was theirs to
comfortable
lose, and they didn't win.
or what, but yeah, they let it get away from them. So
And I do think it's
it's tough.
interesting that you mentioned the experience thing with Vegas, because that's exactly what I was thinking there with, you know, that there's a lot of times where people are like, this team has more playoff experience, so I think they're going to win. And like, you could say that's what happened with the Toronto Ottawa series, but like, what about that series? At what point did you go, damn, he's been to the playoffs before, and that's why that play happened? Like, you can't. It's not tangible very often. Quinton Byfield not just icing the puck
Yeah,
and coughing it up, going for an empty netter. That is a young player who
mistakes
just
that
doesn't
you can't make.
understand the gravity of the situation yet. He hasn't had enough of those harsh losses to go, I just got to get this fucking thing away from me. Get it away from the crease.
Yeah,
And if it's a guy 2 years older than him in that same situation, I don't care if he's a fourth line scrub, I bet he gets it out.
yeah.
But unfortunately, he's the kid, and brutal brutal
And again, we're
failed
not we're
clearing
not we're
attempt.
not saying that like the Kings' entire loss is like on Quinton Byfield. Like at the end of the day, it is
Well,
a
no,
whole
their
team thing.
wins are on him
But
too. Like, he was,
yeah,
other
but
than
like at the
that,
end
he
of the day,
was
that is
arguably their
a
best player.
yeah. We're just saying that was kind of one of the more pivotal turning points kind of in this series, and I think that is very fair to say because again, you he it's off the boards and it's down. Even if it's icing, okay, whatever. You take a face off and you
They've
you
got
go from there.
great
But
face-off guys. They've got
yeah,
great face-off guys in LA. Like,
you
they
take a
they would
face
love a
off all
face-off
day
there.
as opposed to turning it over in your own end when Edmonton's got all their superstars out there.
Yeah.
And they've been like dominating most most of that period too. Like you get it out and you keep pushing until that final buzzer. And
And that would have
puck
put him
ends up
up
in your net and you're
3-1, right? In the
yeah,
series?
and going back home.
Oh, like that, it it's it feels realistic to say there's a very good chance that that's the series. If he does that, they win. There's a good
I
chance. Like,
I
there's
I
also
agree.
just as equal of a chance that Edmonton comes back and wins the next 3. They just won 4 in a row, but
Yeah.
who knows, right? Maybe that's the confidence that LA needs. It's it's a fun what if. Maybe not for Kings fans.
Yeah, it's that's kind of the thing with LA is you look at it now you're in a really tough spot because going into this I was like, "Oh, if you lose to Edmonton, fucking blow it up, restart, you're never going to beat him." But I'm looking it's like, "Okay, you had him beat. You were in a position where you should have won this series and you didn't. So build on that now." This is the hardest lesson Quentin Byfield's ever going to get in his playing career. He's probably still having nightmares about that, just off the boards, off the boards, off the boards, off the boards, and he didn't. And you know what? That's a learning lesson, and you take that, you build on it as a team, as a unit, and maybe you shake up a couple things, but I don't think you need to move too far away from where you're at now. I mean, again, at the end of the day,
No.
you look at them this year. They were the best home team in the league. You look at them the year prior. What was it? They went on a record NHL record win streak on the road to start the season, like 12-0. So it's just things within this organization team. You can see it and be like, there's a path to winning here. You
It's
just
there.
have to find a way to get over that Edmonton hump.
Yeah.
And again, maybe this is the tough loss that you really need to be like, damn, if we did one thing differently at any point in a game, maybe we're moving on. Maybe we're going to play Vegas.
Yeah.
Um,
Very
again,
important off season for the squad too.
yeah.
They got some important pieces that they'll not too many of them are expiring, but they've got a lot of guys that they can re-sign new contracts in the summer. Alex Lafreniere is up for it. Kuzmenko, if they want to keep him around. Where is it? I just saw him here. Adrian Kempe on July 1st can get an extension. He was electric for them in this series. I think there's a very good argument he was their best player.
I think he was.
Brant Clark, Jordan Spence, they were both great. Brant Clark, especially for his limited NHL ice time so far, did great in the series, all things considered. Like they
you've
they have an opportunity to set up the future pretty well here. And I guess this is another team, we were talking about it earlier, that doesn't have a GM, that the future is kind of in the hands of whoever shows up.
Yeah, and the biggest takeaway I get from this is, again, whatever we want to think about LA, that's fine. I won't argue with it, but it shows you can't count out this Edmonton team. Down 2-0.
We saw it in the finals last year.
I originally did predict LA in 7, and my thing was the home team wins every game. But even still, LA was up 2-0. I was like, man, Edmonton could easily just go out there and win 4 straight and end it. This is a team that whatever position you put them in, with the top end talent that they have, and regardless of how bad the goaltending is, you can't count them out.
Yeah.
Until they're officially eliminated, done, it's over. They've lost 4 in the series. You can't count them out.
Yeah. And any team that ever has the single consensus best player in the world, you can't count out, especially if they've also got another top 5 talent in the league on that team.
And a defenseman who, might be the sole reason that your team gives up 2 goals, but then he could go out there and have a 5-point night.
He'll score him back. You know what? I will say, for all of his flaws, he sure does play Edmonton Oilers hockey, doesn't he?
Yeah, he plays it perfectly.
The only team he plays more like might be the Leafs, but that would be more Sheldon Keefe's Leafs, not this iteration with Berube. Yeah, Berube would not be having his shit.
Yeah, no. Not really much else to say on this. Again, I'm LA. We've talked about before. Curious to see what they do. Edmonton, you can't count them out. Don't know what their goaltending situation is going to be. I mean, I think at this point, you just have to ride Calvin Pickard if you're getting wins.
Yeah.
I think if you go with Pickard to start the series against Vegas, I don't think you even go to Skinner again at that point now. Like it's done.
I don't know if you have to start Skinner. Maybe if Pickard gets chased in both games, like with bad outings, but I think you got to give him a bit of a leash. You can't, if he gets shelled in game 1, you don't just immediately go back to Skinner. You got it has to be 2 games in a row. 2 bad games in a row could go back to Skinner.
And I will say, I kind of noticed it, and then I had more people saying it to me on Twitter today, because I kind of said, I was like, I mean, if you're not going Skinner game 1, then you don't go with him. But I don't hate the idea of maybe going with him for game 1, because maybe he catches that magic that he did last year and whatnot. And then I kind of got ripped for it. But then some people were kind of being like, well, I mean, you look at it and it's like, Edmonton was
win with
playing
Pickard?
better, defense when Pickard was in net. They seemed to be blocking a lot more shots and kind of being more defensively sound, and it kind of carried through the series. So
that,
is it one of those
how
things
they play in front of the goalie is important.
Yeah, is it one of those things where it's like you trust Stuart Skinner maybe more, so you feel like, oh, he can bail us out type of thing, and maybe you don't feel that way with Pickard? I'm not sure, but it definitely kind of felt like, Edmonton was playing a more better defensive game when Pickard was in net, and I feel like he wasn't getting kind of hung out to dry in situations like Stuart Skinner was. So, but I mean, at the end of the day, yeah, you probably just roll with Pickard because you got 4 straight wins out of him. He didn't cost you a game. He let in some bad ones, but he didn't cost you a game. So
he's currently 4-0, and you know what?
Ride the hot hand.
Yeah, just kind of ride the hot hand and go to Skinner if you have to. But and it has to be a bad performance from Pickard to swap back. Not just 4 or 5 goals against. It has to be goals that are on him. If he
Yeah,
gets lit up for 6 goals and 4 of them are breakaways and 2 of them are power play goals, that's on your defense. That's not on him. Like it's got to
completely
be
agree.
like use your head when making those changes as well.
Yeah.
But that
Yeah.
Edmonton Vegas, I mean, I think you were saying it before, you're not super excited for it because it's not as flashy of a series as,
No,
as
I'm
something
more
new
on
could have
board with
been.
it now. I'm
Oh,
more on
okay,
board with it.
because I was
These
gonna say because it's
these
got a lot
playoffs
of
have
skill.
been
It's got a
so
lot of skill.
um again, it's just the playoff format where we're just getting a lot of the same ones. I
It's
actually
very
thought we've
repetitive.
gotten Vegas Edmonton more. We've only got it once. And that was the year when Vegas beat Edmonton in round 2 to go and win the
Really, I
cup.
thought we had at least
Um
two before. Huh.
yeah, I thought we had this more. So we've actually only had it once. So I'm like, all right, you know what? I'm back on board. I'm more excited for this.
Yeah, and you know what? If
Especially seeing how
anything,
both teams play.
I yeah, I don't know. I don't really have a favorite in this series. Seems pretty even. I mean, I'm gonna defer to the team that has Connor McDavid because he won a Conn Smythe and not a cup. He's that good.
Is that
But
good?
that, yeah, it's gonna be a close series.
Yeah, it definitely is. Moving on to the other series that got wrapped up over the weekend. This one was on the Saturday. The Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. Just doing the timestamp here.
Holy crap, man!
What
What?
a game. Quickly recap. Because we're here to talk about game 7. We're not here to talk about game 6. But for the sake of it, we do got to talk about just mention what happened in game 6. Colorado won 7-4. There you go. Colorado put up 4 goals in the third period to steal the game. There you go. Now let's talk about game 7.
Not to mention that that game 6 where they what was it 7-4 there? 4 points from Rantanen in that game.
Well, I guess yeah.
And he decided to run it back because that he ended up with the empty netter, which brought him to a 3-goal, 1-assist night in a 4-2 Game 7 win over the Avalanche, over his ex team. Ice in his veins, man. It was it 1-0 or 2-0 going into the third period.
It was 1-0, and then McKinnon scored like 30 seconds in, and it was
Yeah,
like, fuck, that is not what Dallas needed.
no, and I he man, like obviously you look at the score sheet, Rantanen put it on his back. Watching the game though, holy shit! Like the first goal, he walks in, people kind of start setting up the zone. He kind of buys himself a little time, skates across, and then just laser beams it at the top of the
Great
net.
shot.
Great shot. The second goal, he just goes flying up the left side, burns the fuck out of a defenseman, fakes out the goalie. Now Blackwood's out of position. He's going so fast he can't even do a full wraparound, but he just whips it in front of the net and it hits a defenseman in the skate and goes in. Like a move, by the way, that in the next game we'll talk about the Jets and Blues game 7. I know in overtime at least one player tried the exact same play. He was watching Rantanen because he went
And
for a wraparound but just threw it in front.
one thing I will say, and this is to Colorado fans, because I know a lot of Colorado fans were, you know, trying to downplay Rantanen's performance and be like, "Oh, second goal, fucking lucky bounce, not a real goal." Dog, game 6, McKinnon got the game-winning goal off a even crazier bounce. A Dallas player shot it into his own player off the shoulder, and then it went top shed.
Yeah,
Bounces happen; it's part of the game. At
more of
least
this
it went
game than a
off
lot of them.
Rantanen's stick, whereas McKinnon's goal, it went off a Dallas player's stick into their own guy. So
Yeah, it
have that. And also
he
maybe don't let Rantanen absolutely destroy your ankles to get by you to pull that off that wraparound.
yeah, even if it was a
That was a
lucky
great
bounce
move.
a bit, like accidentally on purpose
Yeah.
at is the most you could take away from it because the way he powers in, like that's the most power forward he's ever looked. Man,
Yeah.
he just drove to the net and anyone who wanted to stop him, it was fuck you, get off of me. Like
Yeah,
what a
he
play.
was making sure the puck was getting to the net, and he made sure it got to the net.
Yeah, and then I believe it was a secondary assist on the on the go-ahead goal.
Yeah.
I think
Power
he
play.
passed it to, was it Granlund to
Uh,
Johnston, and
Duchesne, I believe.
Duchesne to Johnston, who uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
kind of an empty net because the
Duchesne had
goalie
2
was down,
assists.
but like he really didn't have a lot to shoot at. He was on a sharp
Yeah,
angle, so that was a
it
nice
had to
shot by
be
Johnston.
a perfect shot. Two things off that. First of all, yeah, great shot by White Johnston. Matt Duchesne, 2 primary assists in this game. That kind of gets overlooked, but he was the one who scored the overtime winner to eliminate Colorado last year with the Dallas Stars. Game 7, he gets 2 primary assists. So it's not getting talked about enough, and I think that's worth
You
mentioning.
know what? That's a great call because he is also an ex-Avalanche player.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what, dude? Like that was man. If it wasn't a revenge game before, holy crap!
And then White Johnston as well. This was his 3rd career Game 7 already at only 21 years old. He's got a goal in all 3 Game 7s he's played in. 2 of them game-winning goals. So you're
Noted
looking at a
third
guy that's
liner.
only 21 years old. You locked him up on a nice 5-year extension. And this dude has already shown that he's, as young as he is, he's clutching these Game 7s for you. And that's just huge for the Dallas Stars. Again, a guy that's, they have such a deep forward core. It's like, oh, we just roll lines, but like 3rd line center. And he's arguably the most clutch guy you have on your team. So I just thought that was worth mentioning too.
No, 100%. Like that's great. That's a great call as well. And yeah, and then obviously that final goal was just a great defensive play. He ended up being the guy to grab it in the neutral zone, empty netter. Shout out to the one dude who had the balls to throw his hat on the ice before the shot was even taken.
Yeah, that was cool.
Like I mean, obviously, like
sick.
it's right there. But I mean, Dallas, if any franchise knows not to call an empty netter for early, like
Yeah.
they were
Thankfully, at
there
least it
for
was
Patrick
with
Stephon.
at least it was with 3 seconds, so, like, it wasn't like, you
It
didn't have to
wasn't
worry
coming
about going to
back.
your net, but it was like, damn, that would suck to throw your hat, but then it's not even a hat trick. Then you just look like a fucking tool. And you're just a
Yeah,
chump with no hat.
you're
What
that guy
if
who threw
what
the
if you're
hat.
like Matthews? What if you're actually, no. I'm not gonna go down that. I'm not an Ottawa fan. I'm not gonna go down that rabbit hole. But
But
yeah, you would look like a chump without your hat if you didn't
yeah,
get it.
and I don't know if we've said on here, but obviously we've said it plenty, talking to each other outside the podcast. But they did this missing Miro Heiskanen, by far their best defenseman, and
Yeah.
potentially their best forward in Jason Robertson. Like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
This is a scary Dallas Stars team that I would not be shocked if end up winning the cup. Mikko Rantanen, currently the betting favorite for the Conn Smythe Trophy after those Game
Yeah.
6 and 7 performances.
And Mikko Rantanen, the first player in NHL history to record a hat trick in a single period in Game 7.
Man, what just it was so fun to watch. Like we were all just sitting there, every hockey fan's all sitting there with their hands up, going cinema. Holy shit! Like,
Yeah.
what did we do to deserve this after the 4 Nations? Are you kidding me? Like,
Yeah.
and somehow after that we get I potentially an even better game the very next night.
Yeah. Quick couple of things to wrap up before we move on. First of all, Colorado again. You went all in. You tried. I got a tip. We got to tip our caps to you. You saw the holes on the team with all the injuries and just the goaltending issues. You went out and you addressed it. You did everything you could. Unfortunately, you literally just ran into a wagon that is the Dallas Stars. Like, there's not much more you can do.
I expect Makar to announce that he's got some sort of injury. He did.
I think so.
He was not he was not taking
Not that I hope
one-timers
he's got
like
an
he
injury,
normally
but
does.
yeah, I mean, a defenseman dropped 30 goals in the regular season, only 1 goal in the playoffs, and it was an empty net goal that meant really nothing. Like, yeah, I think there's probably something in there.
Yeah. Also, not for nothing, Nathan McKinnon said that he is going to represent Team Canada at the World
Dude just had so much
Championship.
fun with Crosby at the 4 Nations. He just wants to
Yeah,
run it
right.
back.
But like he's going. I've heard nothing about Makar going, so
Yeah,
that might lend
Nathan
like
McKinnon as well.
it's his choice. Maybe he just doesn't want to go, but I feel like there's a good
Mhm.
chance he's got some sort of injury he was dealing with throughout the series. And Nathan McKinnon,
Yeah.
7 goals in 7
I was just
games.
gonna
He had
say,
a
yeah,
goal in
7
every
goals.
single game except for one of them, and then I think it was game 1 he had 2 goals. Like, I
Yeah.
mean, how much more can you expect a guy to try and do to carry the team? Like, yeah.
Yeah. Couple quick stats just to run through here to wrap this one up before we go on to the other incredible game 7 that we got. Where I have it here. Sorry, we already talked about Ranta. We talked about Wyatt Johnston. Colorado is the first team in North American sports. So, in terms of playoff style, this would be, you know, um, MLB, NBA, NHL, because it's just one and done in NFL.
Yeah.
They're the first team to have lost 7 straight game 7s.
For that many
So that's a
guys being that
tough
clutch, that's an insane
look.
stat.
They were showing a stat during the game, and I don't know if I got it properly correctly, but it was something along the lines of there's only going before this game tonight, there was only, or well, not tonight, but this Colorado Dallas game, there
Yeah.
was only 2 teams in NHL history that in a game 7 were down by 2 or more goals in the third period and came back to win that game, which is pretty wild. One being Montreal, can't remember what year it was, and the second being the San Jose Sharks in 2019. Head coach at the time was Peter DeBoer. Peter DeBoer doing it again tonight, not tonight, during this game, with
Yeah.
the Dallas Stars. And
So it's only happened 3 times. This would be I'm pretty sure I saw this is the only time it's happened where they came back to win in regulation. They didn't even need overtime to complete the
yeah,
comeback.
yeah, you would be correct there. And obviously we will get into it, but did happen again. New new Mr. Game 7. New Mr. Game 7 in the house, and Peter DeBoer.
Yeah.
Only head coach in NHL history to have nine Game 7 overtime losses or wins.
Did you say head coach?
Head coach.
Because I actually saw this earlier. I know for a fact it's not just head coach, it's person in NHL history. No player's done this either.
Really?
Yeah, no player, and it's in the major 4 sports as well. In same for again MLB, NBA. No player or coach has ever won 9 game 7s, less alone done it undefeated in those.
Yeah. Like
Like
9, he's gone to 9
that's
game
crazy.
7s and come out on top in all of them. And especially when you look at that San Jose one, you're down 3-0 with 10 minutes left in the third. You come back to win that one. This one, you're down 2-0.
This wasn't even his biggest comeback in a game 7. What a psycho.
Like I'm pushing the narrative. Peter DeBoer, Mr. Game 7. May not be a player, but at the end of the day,
how can you argue with 9-0? You can't argue with that. You can't.
Like, I was looking at it when Colorado went up. I was like, damn. I was like, fuck, this could be it. But then I was like, I see they panned over to Peter DeBoer on the bench. I'm like,
and it's not even
Colorado's
like he's
just done. They're done.
It's not even like he's on teams where, they are just way better than the other team, because to get to game 7, you have to be kind of similar in skill level, right? You got to game 7, you're 3-3. So clearly it's not like, all these stats where it's like some guys got insane stats, but it's like, yeah, but he was, playing against the, early 2010 Leafs or something. Like he's against other good playoff teams. And 9 wins, 0 losses. Super impressive stuff.
It's just incredible. Unfortunately for Jared Bednar, he drops to 0-4 in game 7s, which is kind of tough.
And again, just crazy with the talent he has that you would think they're a great team in game 7. If I had to guess before the last few days knowing, like, I would assume that they're great, but no, they need to figure out a way to close out those last games there.
Yeah, but again, congrats to the Colorado Avalanche on a great season. You were my Stanley Cup pick, so fuck you for making me look like a chump. To the Dallas Stars, again, but your top defenseman out, arguably your top forward out. You found a way to win. That's incredible. Like, truly,
those guys might be back for round 2 now. We don't really know yet.
They're both going to be back. We're just unsure of when.
Right.
But it does sound like they're both going to be back. So
yeah. Unlike
that just makes them that much scarier.
unlike we didn't mention Matthias Ekholm. It sounds like he's officially out for the entirety of round 2.
Yeah, they
So
said round 2 he's still going to be out. I
that's
wouldn't be
brutal.
shocked though if it goes
Maybe a game
7
7.
I was going to say if it game 7 he probably shows up.
It could be something like that where he could push it if it gets to that point. It might be something where they're just updating us as we go, but it might be like a 0% chance that he plays if they go to game 7 of the cup final. Like, we really don't know how bad it is at this point.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not too bad and he can get in late in this series or next series, but that's rough for the Oilers.
Yeah, it's not ideal. I guess wrapping it up with the last series, the Winnipeg Jets and St. Louis Blues. What I mean, you said it perfectly. We thought we couldn't get a better or anything to even touch what we witnessed.
Everything we just
Dallas
said.
and
How do you top it?
Colorado. Again, because we didn't cover Game 6 because that took place on Friday. St. Louis won 5-2. Connor Hellebuck, for the third straight time on the road in the playoffs this year, all games in St. Louis, was pulled. St. Louis won that one 5-2. Mopped the Winnipeg Jets.
I believe he is one of 4 or 5 goalies in history to allow 36 or more goals in a single playoff series and still win that playoff series. Like, it was a rather short list, and it's like that's so crazy for a guy that not only is pretty much a lock for the Vezina, he's nominated for the Hart as a goalie.
Yeah,
how can he be like? It's mind blowing.
It truly is. Yeah, it's shocking.
And it looked like we were getting more of that at the start of this game 7. 2 goals pretty early on by the Blues. I know at least one of them was he slid way too far, just really took himself out of position. Kyrou cleans up a bit of a rebound, bit of a pass through the crease, and the writing felt on the walls. But as the game kept going, they started getting momentum. They pushed. They got a goal. They let one back in. It's 3-1, and then what is it with a minute 56, something like that? They score, and then with 1.3 seconds?
Yeah.
They get the tying goal. All 4 goals, by the way, deflections for the Jets. They obviously they won, sure, but they never clean.
I don't think the
Jordan Binnington.
The Mestikovs, I don't think was a deflection.
I don't know on that one for sure. I kind of thought it looked like
unless
it
did a
direction.
St. Louis player.
I was gonna say because he took the shot and got the goal, so
Yeah.
it definitely wasn't a deflection off his guys. It might have hit a defenseman, but I'm not 100% sure on that one. There was a lot of screen.
Yeah, but at least for sure,
at the very least,
100%.
3 of them. Oh my god, I think it was the first. Yeah, the first goal.
The first one.
That's might be the dirtiest deflection goal I've ever seen.
That's a Joe Pavelski level deflection.
That was like Joe Pavelski had a baby with Sidney Crosby, and you taught him how to deflect pucks.
Yeah,
like holy shit. And I don't think that was supposed to be a pass from Kyle Connor. I think he was doing a bit of a shot pass for that deflection, like they had practiced it. The psychos.
Yeah,
like if that is a shot, it's going not 2 feet, not 5 feet wide. It's going 15 feet wide. It's almost closer to the corner than it is the net. And he just freaking smacks it to the side and it goes right top of the net. Just sneaks inside, but also goes under the bar over the shoulder. Like that. Yeah, that no goalie is saving that without just pure luck because you can't expect that.
Yeah,
it would have to be luck of your stick being in the way or something.
Yeah, and with Winnipeg, worth noting, Mark Scheifele did get injured pretty early on in Game 6, so he did not play through the majority of Game 6. Did not play at all in Game 7, and Josh Morrissey only played a little bit over 2 minutes in the first period before getting knocked out of this game. So again, like we talked about with Dallas, now you're looking at Winnipeg, arguably their best forward and their top defenseman were both not there in Game 7.
And they still pulled it off. Crazy.
Pretty incredible. Yeah, I mean
The scenes in Canada Life Center. Oh my god.
yeah,
The
the
whiteout
whiteout,
was
the
losing their mind.
first game 7 in Winnipeg as well for them. So
Oh wow.
it was a pretty incredible moment. I will say
Uh
with it, I don't know for sure if they mean like the new Jets here. I don't know if like
Probably
the
their
older
franchise
Jets had
histories are kind of split up. I think this would
yeah.
be in Thrashers slash Jets history.
Yeah, the old Jets
Maybe it
history
didn't happen with the
is
other one,
done.
but
Is wiped away now. It's gone. It died with the Coyotes.
it is still legally held, but it is currently not in use.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know how that would work if they wanted to redo it. It's confusing to think about, so I'm not going to
Yeah.
until it
We won't even
matters.
dive down
Um,
that rabbit hole.
but just so good. The latest tying goal in NHL playoff history in a game 7 from Cole
Well, yeah, I
Perfetti
would
there
I would I would assume so, yeah.
with 1.3 seconds, I believe it was left. Like, oh man, and you could just feel that it
And
was
another one
coming
from
too,
Kyle
right?
Connor
But I mean,
too.
when it's at a certain point, there's 2 seconds left. What the fuck are they supposed to do? Oh, it was
Yeah, when it's 5 seconds
place
left and Ehlers
exploded.
when it's 5 seconds left and Ehlers takes a blast from the point and gets blocked, it's like, "Oh, well, they're done."
I
Like,
thought they
that
were
was their
done
last chance to
10
get one
seconds
on
before
net.
that when he fumbled a pass and it went out of the zone and they
Yeah.
had to retake the zone quickly. He I as soon as that happened, I was like, why is Nick Ehlers back there not a defenseman? He fucked it. Nick Ehlers killed it. I thought for sure he screwed them. The fact that after his next shot got blocked, I would have bet $1,000 that he's just gonna do his best to get around that guy and hammer another shot. There's no time left. This
Mhm.
freaking madman, this psycho, makes a cross ice pass east west over to the far side. I can't believe he goes for that.
And that's
Like
Kyle
the
Connor's wheelhouse. I'm surprised he didn't just
yeah,
try and blast it on net. The
yeah,
patience to catch it and then make that pass.
yeah. I ice in the veins of Ehlers, Connor, and Perfetti on that one. So
Mhm.
good. And then obviously the game winner. I think that was actually one the least impressive goal they had because that one was a deflection, but that one just went off Lowry's ass, didn't it?
I'm not
Like
100% sure, to
I
be
I
honest with you.
didn't I didn't see a good replay of it. I only ever saw zoomed out ones, but I'm pretty sure they were talking about it going off of his rear in the
Hey, you know
post
what? That's why
game.
they do the squats. You make that ass a little bit bigger, fuck, it wins you a double overtime game 7. Do
Hey,
your squats.
hey, Pat Maroon for St. Louis Blues. Like
Yeah.
nobody knows it better than St. Louis fans that you shove a guy with a fat ass in front of the net. Sometimes it tricks the goalie.
Yeah, good things happen. Um, lot of takeaways from this. Obviously, not a great start for Connor Hellebuck, but I will say, while he didn't face an insane amount of shots, I mean, only 4 shots in the third, 4 shots in the first overtime, 5 shots in the second. When he needed to make the saves and it was all on the line, at the end of the day, he did make the saves.
He did show up
He obviously did not have the greatest series by any means. Like he was on the level of Stuart Skinner. Um,
a little
but
bit
it but
below him
a
actually in
again,
save
I
percentage, but
give credit to Scott Arneal for sticking with it and leaving him in there and trusting in his goalie and having faith. And at the end of the day, it worked out. If St. Louis scored a shitter in in one of the overtimes to win it, then it's like, well, fuck. But you know what? Hellebuck wasn't great, but when it was all on the line, you got the win. And Jordan Binnington, I
yeah,
mean, we talked about it. It was the clash once again of the 2 goalies that faced off in the finals for the 4 nations for Canada and US, Binnington and Hellebuck. Binnington played his ass off in this game. A guy that's um, been nothing but impressive in, whether it's like in the finals in the 4 nations or game 7s in the playoffs. He has always come out on top. He was 3-0 and incredible stats. He let in 4, but again, like we talked about, 4 deflections. One's that he's tracking the puck and all of a sudden it goes a different way and it's in. He faced 47 shots and it took 4 deflections to beat him. Didn't get beat clean once. He played his
yeah.
ass off for the Blues. What a gutsy comeback by by Winnipeg, though. I mean, it was looking like it was 2 minutes left. You're down by 2. Blues were just kind of rolling. You were throwing everything you could at them, and just nothing could work. And all of a sudden, a few minutes later, it's like, oh shit, we're going to overtime here in Game 7.
Yeah,
Just incredible.
king
And the
shit, man.
whiteout,
That
and
was so good.
just insane.
There
Like
were
truly,
several not intermissions, intersections, Jesus, in Winnipeg that were shut down till like 7:30 the following day, where the police finally broke it up because there was just like groups of people gathered around a jukebox or a boombox, just like hanging out, partying, dancing, sitting in lawn chair. People were just all over the city, just hanging out, and nobody cared that it was Saturday night. I'm sure all of the bosses the next day and the supervisors would just have to deal with it. Like, the city did not sleep that night, and the amount
um,
of videos are just
I
so good.
I put it all up on the they were all up on the socials, and I sent it to you back when the Four Nations and Canada Canada won the Four Nations.
Yeah.
The video of the guys on the bench, watching the game during beer league. They had an iPad on the bench.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Um, if anyone wants to, or you haven't seen it, go check our socials. The video is up. Again, in Winnipeg, there was a beer league game taking place during the same time as Game 7, and it wasn't the overtime. Actually, I don't know what goal it was. I don't know if it was the tying goal
I think
or
it was the
the
tying goal,
overtime.
but I'm not
But all the
100%.
actually no, yeah, it probably would have been the beer league games
Yeah,
go
yeah,
pretty
who's
darn
playing
late.
beer league that late? It was getting pretty
You know
late
what?
over there.
It
It
is
was
it is
late for
beer league
us.
though. I mean, fuck, some beer league games start at 11 p.m. Maybe it was
Madmen.
those sickos. But at the end, it was a bunch of guys on one bench watching on a phone, and you see the ref over by center ice, and he's even like not even watching the game. He's got his phone
Oh,
in his hand watching the game.
it's
And then the
so
goal is scored,
funny.
and
Like,
everybody's selling. The ref jumps in like he just scored the goal to
he jumps in like
celebrate
he
with all the
scored. He was
boys.
jumping into the
Like
bench.
it
It
was
was
incredible. And it again,
Hockey's
at
awesome,
the end of the
man.
day, yeah, hockey's awesome. Nothing against any other sports, but nothing beats the Stanley Cup playoffs at the end of the day. It is um, just what we witnessed from this first round. You can say great first round all around, but when you look at the last 2 games, and it's like, fuck, man, like
Yeah.
this is just the greatest game on earth.
I
Um,
can so see like the players on the bench like watching the game, but the fact that the ref is standing there, he's standing on the red line and he's like kind of like looking up every now and then, like he's checking on the play, he's keeping an eye on him like a 15-year-old babysitter, but he's more focused on his phone in his hands. He's
yeah,
literally probably being paid, probably not a ton, but to ref this game, and he's watching the fucking game because it's Game 7, and like
he was locked in.
that's so good. And you can't see what goes on the rest of the play. I don't doubt that the play just immediately died wherever it was and everybody went and sullied. Like,
Honestly, wouldn't surprise me.
both benches erupt, the ref goes over and is hugging one of the teams, like, yeah, it freeze it, yep, yeah, face off, whatever, in 5 minutes when our blood pressure settles. Like, yeah,
Yeah, boys got to get hyped.
you love to see
Um,
it, man.
but again, St. Louis Blues coming in as the underdog here, the team that just snuck in the West to go up against the President's Trophy winning team. Not only you take them to Game 7, you take them to double overtime. Your 3 wins, you did it all on home ice in front of your fans. You lit up Hellebuck, which I'm sure made Blues fans thrilled to be able to watch that there.
Coaching
You
change
looked at it in,
mid-season, like,
if you have Dylan Holloway, you probably win this series. But again, just an incredible turnaround for St. Louis from where they were. A couple of things worth noting with the Blues that is impressive. Through the first round of the playoffs, Philip Broberg actually leading all players in plus minus. He was a +9 in that series. Cam Fowler tied for second in the playoffs in assists with 8, tied with Kyle Connor. Only one behind Connor McDavid. And
10
Cam Fowler tied
10
for
points.
5th in points, yeah, with 10.
Like
He's tied
like
with Adrian Kempe and Leon Draisaitl. That is Cam
like
Fowler, who you got for a second round pick.
just insane how good he's been for them. Like when we started this podcast, I had a few things open. I had an empty hockey DB thing to search up players if I need stats. I've got cap wages to look at that. I've got daily face off if we need line combinations. And then I also had an extra one for Cam Fowler's hockey DB, so I didn't forget
Yeah.
to talk about him because like what an acquisition. Like he was good defensively, 10 points in those 7 games. Like and watching the games, he was freaking noticeable out there every time. Like
Yeah.
they need to look at bringing this guy back.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan move at the time. I still thought they won the deal, obviously, but I didn't think it made a lot of sense. Yeah, this guy's you make him part of your group moving forward. Like he is fit in.
Oh, he's got another year.
Yeah, he's still got another year. So they could extend him July 1st. Do it.
We'll have to see how
And
much
then
they
go
want to
offer
extend him.
someone.
He is 33, but I mean, even if it's
Until it
just one more
stops
year,
working, yeah, you keep running with it.
Yeah, pretty much.
But we are getting near the end of the episode here. Don't have a lot of time, so again, like we said, we're not going to really do much of a preview and whatnot. We kind of know a lot about these teams. We've seen some of these matchups before, and then we'll later on this week we'll kind of be diving more into the start of these series and where it's at and kind of where we're feeling at that point. But Braden, to wrap this one up, we are just going to go through the 4 series that we got, and we're just going to give our quick hit prediction on who's coming out on top. So we will start off over in the East with 2 teams we haven't talked about in a while, as they've had lots of rest: the Washington Capitals and the Carolina Hurricanes.
Oh, so this is a rather tough one because I don't feel really negatively or strongly about either of them too much. I think just a bit more playoff experience. I'm gonna go with Carolina, but
Carolina.
I'm
going Washington.
I could see either
again,
team, and I could see it in 5, 6, or 7 games for either team as well. I don't think a sweep is in order,
I don't
but
think so.
anything other
It
than
could go
that,
either way.
honestly, for either way.
Yeah, I'm just going
I'd say 6
Washington
for
again.
Hurricanes.
I was going to say Washington 6. Again, at the end of the day, Washington. I bet against them at the start of the year. They proved me wrong all regular season, and they're just dominating. This just feels like something they're gonna go on to win the cup, and it's gonna turn into a book, a movie, all this shit, and it's Seth Rogen's gonna play fucking Alex Ovechkin or some shit like that. So I'll go Washington in
That's just awful.
in 6. We'll talk more about game 1 later this week, but we do know that Toronto is up 1-0 over the defending Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers.
Yeah.
What is your prediction for this one?
I hate this pick because I think if we watch 4 to 7 games of hockey, I want to pick the Toronto Maple Leafs. But we're watching the NHL playoffs, so I'm picking the Florida Panthers. We will talk about this more next episode, so I'm not going to go very in depth here, but Stolarz was taken out and he was concussed to the point of throwing up on the bench by Sam Bennett's elbow. I don't know if you've seen the clip. Matthew Tkachuk goes for a vicious knee on knee hit on the side on Mitch Marner in like the final 10 seconds of the game. Like, Toronto's not going to be able to beat this team because by game 4, Marner, Riley, Nylander, Matthews, none of them are going to be healthy. I don't know if any of them will be playing. I genuinely think this team might do the most legitimate version of gooning their way to a cup that has happened in my lifetime. I don't like the idea of that. And I'm not just saying that as a salty Lightning fan. If you think that's what's happening, I don't blame you. Of course, I would think that. But man, 1 year ago, Sam Bennett, you won the Stanley Cup with that goalie, and you just elbowed him in the head and concussed the balls off him. They're going to have to roll wool for at least a couple games.
Potentially rest of the playoffs. It was reported after the game that Stolarz did leave in the 3rd period on a stretcher.
Like, fuck, man. Like,
so they must have found something pretty serious after the fact, because he did play, I think, the final 8 minutes of that period or something like that. He played like another 8 minutes or so before.
Maybe I thought he got off.
They said he played like 8 minutes or so.
I I despise that. There's very few things in this game that I despise more than cheering for injuries. I genuinely hope that something takes Matthew Tkachuk and Sam Bennett out for the rest of these playoffs. I don't think they deserve to play hockey right now. The way they're playing is so vicious. They don't deserve to have an NHL team's logo on them until next season at the soonest, in my opinion. Like it's getting to travesty levels, not just dirty shithead levels, you know? Like the integrity of this sport feels like it's being called into question in my mind, which is uh fuck, man. Look, the conversation we just had about those 2 game 7s, that's what the sport's about, man. Don't give me this shit. In game 1, you made a goalie go out on a stretcher because you elbowed him in the head, you dick. Ugh. So anyway, that's me not talking about it.
So just to confirm, you are going Florida?
I'm going Florida. I don't want to, and I'll be very happy if I'm wrong.
I'm saying, but
Florida
I'm
in
going.
6.
Okay, I was going to go Florida in 7. Moving on over to the West, the series that I thought we got a lot of times, but apparently only once. The Vegas Golden Knights and the Edmonton Oilers.
This is going to be a fun ass series. I am going to take. I guess I kind of said it earlier. I'm going to take the Oilers. I think McDavid wants a freaking cup. I think this isn't the best version of the Golden Knights that we've seen in recent years, although it is still a very strong squad. I'm going to say I think it does take them 7.
Yeah, I got Oilers in 7.
Yeah.
I think Vegas is a better team than LA, but I think I'm a little bit more scared of, which is crazy to say because they were defensive like powerhouse last year, but I think I'm more scared of LA from an offensive perspective. And we've seen that Edmonton can outscore their problems. And I think Vegas is a bit more of a defensive team. But again, if you're not allowing 5 goals against per game, you should be fine. So I'll go Edmonton in 7. And the last series in the West, the President's Trophy Winnipeg Jets going up against the Dallas Stars.
I really hope that I am proven wrong on this one as well, but for a much more fun reason. Because this Dallas Stars team is they just look like a wagon. If Hellebuck is the Connor Hellebuck we've seen for 82 games, I guess he didn't start all of them, for 60 plus games in the regular season, this one's going the distance. But if Eric Comrie's drawing in for every away game, like I'm taking Stars in 5.
I'll go Stars in 6.
I'm hoping it goes longer than that, especially after the heroics since round 1. It would suck to just see it be one-sided. But that's partly due to the shaky goaltending, but very largely in part that this Stars team looks amazing, and they're getting 2 of their best players back at some point in the series as well. Like that.
Yeah, that is huge for it.
They took out your cup winner, my cup runner-up in our bracket, and they did it without 2 of their best players. Like we've said it multiple times already, but like it doesn't get any less insane when you say it.
It really is incredible.
But I hope it at least goes to 6. If it went to 7, I mean, we just saw insane heroics out of both these squads. Like, who knows?
Be pretty cool to watch them go head to head in a game 7. But that will wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope everybody enjoyed. Hope you enjoyed all of our talk covering latest news around the league, all the stuff with the draft and the draft lottery, all the wrap up of round 1 of the playoffs, and our predictions for round 2 of the playoffs. Make sure to come back on Friday when we'll kind of go a little bit more in depth with these 4 series where we're at, cover the rest of the news around the league, talk a little bit about the awards finalists, all that fun stuff. You can get it all on Friday, so keep an eye out for that. Braden, you know where the socials are. I do. Everybody knows where they are. They are all the links for all the socials down in the description across all episodes, across all platforms.
So true.
Braden, there's been a marathon here, but as always, final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I want to see no injuries in round 2. I want to see just no more injuries. I guess we mentioned briefly game 1. Some have happened from this moment that I am speaking, the night of that game. if we can just not see any injuries in this round and just see some good ass hockey, that'll
Just
be
clean,
awesome.
hard, fast, clean hitting hockey.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't
I
have to
agree.
not be violent. You can blow a guy up and it's fine, Just do it
clean.
cleanly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Guys have made careers off of it.
But that does wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope everybody enjoyed. And as always, we will see all of you guys out on the ice later this week.